All right, welcome everybody to our little lunch and learn here today on some AI tasks that we're going to demonstrate for you, both for marketing, market research, and intellectual property considerations. My name is Paul Johnson. I'm the program manager for our Cybersecurity for Small Business program, joined by Monica Patton, our research and commercialization director for our FAST program. Welcome, Monica. And Kayley, our market research program manager. So we are all within the Wyoming SBDC network, wyomingsbdc.org. There is a nice little button in the upper right-hand corner that says Contact Us if you are not a client of ours and want any sort of business advising, whether it be startups or valuation or technology-related intellectual property situations or market research. Click that contact button up there, and one of our business advisor regional directors in the area will reach out to you and get you the resources you need. All right, so I'm going to start here with some marketing tasks that you can use a chatbot to accomplish. And I've just created some prompts here because prompt engineering is really the key for completing marketing tasks using chatbot assistant. And my prompts tend to be pretty complete. And the reason for that is the quality of the information you receive from the chatbot is wholly dependent on the quality of the information that you put into it. So let's start with this one. Landscaping and lawn maintenance company in Casper. Our services: mowing, hardscaping, zone preferred vegetation selection and planting, and so on. Give them the name of my business and ask them to create 5 social media posts about my business that I can begin running to attract clients before the season begins. So plug it into, I'm not promoting Claude here as a platform. I find that it does work quite well for marketing tasks like this. It's just a little more sophisticated and conversational than some of the other ones that I've found. It's created a season teaser brand awareness post and service spotlight, local expertise plant selection post, a fall cleanup post that I can run at that time of the year, and a post about community and improving the community through using landscaping services. So what I do like about Claude is that it provides some tips to make your social media posts better. It not only gives you the text, but suggests types of photos that I can include in this post. Tells us to post them 1 to 2 weeks apart leading into spring to build some steady momentum. And then maybe if you're going to use a budget, suggests a budget amount that you might use for social media posting. And then, of course, if you've used these assistants, they will now always ask you if you'd like any posts adjusted for length or platform format. But these, of course, aren't ready to go. As we always say when we talk about using AI chatbots, rewrite them in your own words. But what this does give you is it removes the fear of the blank page. It is at least giving you some content that you can then cater to your own style, and maybe it makes some assumptions about what your business is sometimes. So you really need to pay attention to what it's saying about you and make sure that it reflects exactly the kinds of services and goods that you are advertising. So that's a great way to do some social media posting using a chatbot assistant, at least for a rough draft. So let's ask it to do some other things for us. All right, so what I've found is that these chatbot assistants have gotten much better at thinking a bit more strategically to help you accomplish tasks. So I'm asking it to actually put together a marketing strategy for me because I want to run some introductory offers before the season starts up. I tell it that our base price for a complete spring yard cleanup is $250, and that some interesting information is that we have recently entered a wholesale agreement with an irrigation fixtures manufacturer that saves us 25% in prices. So we need to build that into our pricing strategy now. I'm also telling it that we offer season-long discounts for clients who commit to lawn maintenance for the entire season. So I want some ideas on how to put together some early bird discount schedules to attract clients before the season even begins. And I give it another piece of information that many clients aren't even aware that we have hardscaping services. They just think of us as basically a lawn maintenance company. So how can we get that message out? So I've pasted that prompt into the box here, and it's giving me some pricing options. So it's asking me, hey, have you considered a tiered discount rate that rewards the clients who book earliest? So the earlier you book, the more you save money on the season. Then, of course, it's taken my irrigation discount and put together a strategy for that. So it's analyzed that information and determined that the wholesale savings is giving you some flexibility. Since we're saving 25% on materials, you can pass a portion of that on to new clients while still improving your margins over last year, and then provides a few different angles of how you might accomplish that. Season-long maintenance, it's factored that into some strategic approaches you can take, and also some ideas for our hardscaping awareness, running a special on that. So it's providing a lot of details here. There's a lot of talk about how AI is replacing people and jobs, and in some cases it is, but I think with small businesses, we still have to go out and do this work. It's just giving us some ideas that maybe we wouldn't have thought of on our own or thought through as thoroughly as the model here has done for us once we've given it some fairly detailed information. All right, so let's talk about another task. When you're putting a business plan together or looking for financing, people often want to know what your mission statement is. So in this case, this business is very small and it doesn't have a mission statement. So we tell the chatbot some of our values and our business angles and how we like to approach our customers, what our experience has been. In this case, it says 23 years in the business. Family members are also involved, and it was started when this person was 12 years old. I think this is a really important thing to feed in here too, that we're not just talking about dollars and cents. This person has a passion to help homeowners not only create pride in their properties, but to enhance the beauty of our entire community. So a good mission statement really needs to express the passion that you have for doing the work that you've chosen to do. So we've plugged that in here. And it's actually given us 5 different mission statement drafts here based on the various pieces of information that I've asked it to consider. So we talk about legacy and community focus, our expertise, our values-driven approach to our business, and a warm story to tell our customers. And then it finishes with a bold and community-minded mission statement. So it's taken that fairly detailed prompt that I've asked it to consider and has provided some very nice statements that do reflect exactly what we're looking for here. Now it's a matter of choosing one, working it, and sticking to it. And I'm going to ask it to do one more thing for me here. So this particular business owner also has a manufacturing job in the private sector because the work is seasonal and they are not able to do that work full time to make enough money to live off of, or to even hire employees that would be in the business full time. So I'm asking Claude here, give me some ideas for how I can pivot my seasonal business into a year-round income-producing business. And we get some great ideas here. Of course, snow removal is always going to come up first when we're talking about lawn care businesses because the equipment can be adapted to do that kind of work. But holiday lighting installation and removal, great idea. There's a lot of winterizing that really needs to happen to make your lawn look decent in the spring. So winter tree and shrub care is great. Gutter cleaning, super important in our climate. Another idea is to grow the hardscaping size of the business more aggressively, leverage your expertise, some more year-round recurring revenue streams. So from that brief paragraph, it's giving us some great ideas for building our business and possibly turning it into a full-time venture. So those are just 4 tasks that you can use an AI chatbot to complete for you. And Just wanted to show the flexibility and actually the breadth of information that you can get when your prompt is complete and you provide enough adequate information to get good results. So with that, and I'm going to pass it along to my teammate Kayley to talk about some market research ideas.
Yeah, thank you so much, Paul. I am also going to share my screen and talk a little about deep research today. So we can kind of think of deep research as not one specific AI tool or agent, but really a type of product that's offered through most of the leading AI companies. So you think of like OpenAI, who created ChatGPT. Google has Gemini. There's Claude AI and Perplexity, and they all have these different versions of AI tools. And so, like, what is deep research and how is it really different from, when you're typing into the regular AI models? So deep research is when the AI agent is designed to perform more complex multi-step research tasks. So what you're really asking for is something more comprehensive, like a report or more in-depth research. When you're using, kind of just typing in directly when, ChatGPT comes up and you're asking it a question, it's often pretty quick and it's very concise, but it may not go into the detail that you're looking for. And then that's when you would change it to look at the deep research. One thing to note is that although deep research does tend to look through more sources and provides more details, it's often a lot slower. A great example is just this morning when I was pulling up some prompts for this presentation. I did try to run through one of my paid pro accounts, and I did get the message that it would not run because they have received too many requests this morning and to try again later. So that's just something to be aware of. It took almost 30 minutes for me to actually be able to run, and I had priority with the paid account. So definitely not something that you're looking for in a hurry, but it does provide some good detail. And with that, I'm actually going to show you guys demo a few, and I'll take you through a few different deep research tools. I have ChatGPT and primarily Gemini pulled up, but there's also Perplexity. And like I said, this is offered through almost every single, kind of leading AI tool that you have, generative AI, I should say. And what you're going to be looking for is usually there's going to be a tools icon or something like that, and deep research is going to be listed among those. And so I'm going to have this run, although I doubt it is going to be very quick. So I do have a few examples that we're also going to use for this. What we're looking for in terms of the types of questions that you're going to be asking the deep research tool, some common topics that I often look through is, competitor analysis and benchmarking. You may also want to ask about, in this case, consumers, psychographics, who they are, what they're looking for in terms of products. For this example, I'm using dog treats and looking at potential customers. There are obviously some limitations with this. It's going to try and pull several sources, but it's pulling sources usually from the internet, sometimes academic articles. You can try and tell it what sources you're looking for, but it's going to create a report that's going to look very official, but it's always recommended to, one, go through the sources, and two, kind of take it with a grain of salt. So I asked it a few questions, and they'll each have a different version of how they're going to verify the questions that I asked. So I said I'm producing all natural dog treats, looking for information on my potential customers. I was very specific, not only about the types of person that I'm looking for information for, so dog owners, instead of just saying pet owners. I also noted all natural, so Gemini now knows that, hey, maybe I'm looking at people who would care more about that. I'm saying, what are their concerns? So looking at maybe some pain points that they're having, and I can word that a few different ways. So if I'm looking at what it's coming up with, and I'm saying, hey, it's not really getting what I'm asking, which it did a fairly good job here, I can go in and revise this. So I can always say edit plan. But for this example, we'll just go ahead and start the research. And I'm going to leave this in the background because this is probably it usually takes for me at least 5 minutes for it to complete. So we're just going to leave this here so you guys don't have to stare at a mostly blank screen. And this is an example of what ChatGPT's version looks like. So I asked a general question, what are some trends in AI education? And then perform an analysis. And as you saw, Gemini came up with basically a plan, and it asked me to verify, so either start research or edit the plan. ChatGPT comes back with a few questions and examples to try and narrow it down. So we narrowed it down to K-12 and higher education. And then it's going to create a nice large report for us. And it has a few highlights in terms of things to note, provided some case studies, things like that. And I'm not gonna ask you guys to read this, and it really doesn't matter. This is just a good example of how it's formatting the information and the type of information that it can pull. And here's another one from ChatGPT. This one is a science question. So I'm looking for papers, authors, things like that within specific like scientific disciplines. So it's pulling for physics, chemistry, and then for the sources, ChatGPT will naturally list the sources this way. So if I want to learn more about the deep neural network for the data set, I'll go to this Nature article. And you can ask it to list sources in a different way, but this is just how it's going to naturally sort of do it. As you can see, when I said that deep research is slow, it is quite slow. It is still going, which is why I did pull up some more examples. One of my favorite use cases for using deep research is product comparison. So it can do a good job of evaluating the difference. In this case, I asked it to really talk about the difference between Wix, WordPress, and Squarespace, since those are pretty common website builders. And I'll scroll down again. They always create really long reports, but I wanted to show the number of sources that it's looking through. If you type this into the regular just Gemini, hey, tell me the difference, it's going to maybe pull 5 of these. And we have closer to 20, maybe 30 that it's looking through to create a summarization table. And is the information more or less the same? Yes, but this is more comprehensive. So it's going to tell me more information about the pros and cons of each one, how, maybe Wix is better in some cases, WordPress better in others, things like that. So I really like it. Another one for this one's non-business related, but car shopping is a great example. You can say, hey, I'm looking in this budget for these features, and it can do a good analysis of that as well. I'll show you one more, just as a kind of local example. So I asked it, like theoretically, I'm opening an Italian restaurant, to do a competitor analysis. And so it pulled the competitors in Cheyenne, and I did ask it to create a little table for me. So it'll kind of give an information on the target markets. I have some pricing information as well. So this can be helpful as you're planning things like market feasibility, if that's something that you're looking at. Pricing can be a great example as well. It gives me a nice little report as that you can also just kind of share, export, and do anything you want with. So that's kind of a general overview of deep research. And like I said, there's a lot of examples of what you can ask it to research. And let's go back to the doc tree, see if we finally got the report. So I've been talking for probably about 10 minutes, and we finally got it. So it is kind of a longer deal, but it looks through more information. It's providing more in-depth information about what we're looking through in terms of like protein, what's appealing to people as of right now. So looking at, animal welfare as a purchase driver, sustainability. To me, deep research is not great at brainstorming, but it's really good at looking at a variety of sources that can lead you to more information. So even if everything in the report is not what you're looking for, you may say, hey, actually, this source had great data. I would love to look more into this website to see if I can find anything else. And so that's usually how I use deep research for market research for companies and things like that. There are, like I said, limitations to any AI tool, especially, but for deep research, it looks very official. It looks very complete, but it is just pulling information from the internet. So it's making a best guess in terms of how relevant and accurate the source is, and the sources are not always accurate. And if you come to a point where you're really looking for accurate information, you can talk to the Market Research Center. So we have paid databases that tools like these cannot pull from because they're paid, they're behind, paywalls, things like that. So that's when, if you're really looking for some accurate, great information, you may reach out to us instead of using these types of tools. And I will stop sharing my screen and I will turn it over to Monica.
Hey everybody. So I'm going to talk a little bit about concerns of using AI. Well, AI can help with productivity gains. In some circumstances, it can hurt businesses. I help clients with SPR and STTR grant proposals to government agencies. 2 agencies so far have made a policy that they will not consider grant proposals if they are written by AI. Therefore, early on in the process, we caution clients not to develop proposals using AI if they think they might submit to NSF or NIH. This is a relatively new development, so it's unknown if other agencies will follow suit. Another instant where AI can hurt is patenting. The case law for patenting inventions assisted by AI is still being developed. However, something invented entirely by AI cannot be patented. It is unknown where the line between the unpatentable AI generation and patentable human invention assisted by AI will finally settle. At this point, it's just recommended that all people using AI to assist their inventive process carefully document the human inputs into AI to show their inventive steps. AI can also help hurt its users when they ask for assistance in making something that may have a copyright or trademark protection. AI uses publicly available images as its data set. Therefore, if you're designing a logo or other image that could potentially become a brand asset for your company, be aware that AI may be using copyrighted or trademarked materials as its source data. So if you plan to trademark the logo, document all the human inputs to AI. You can also modify the output to add additional human input. Also, if you put your art into a large language model, make sure that you know that it will be a source for creating other people's art. Also, check your company and name and logos through the trademark office. An article on the current risks and mitigation is linked in the chat, and you could do your searches in the links in the chat. So privacy concerns are another issue with people using AI when working on sensitive information. AI uses inputs to train its model. If you put sensitive information into it, you've disclosed it to the public. When I work for clients, I never use large language models unless the client expresses a desire for me to do so. In those circumstances, I usually do that with the client with me so they can make real-time decisions on the risks that they want to take with their own data. Note, you also have to be careful of search engines now because some automatically put the search into their own large language model. There are settings that can improve the privacy data, but those have to be used with caution, with the data owner deciding if they trust that large language model to keep their word about not using certain data. Additionally, if working with highly sensitive data, it's important to segregate access from internal secure AI to external public AI. An example of this going badly is when the US cyber defense chief accidentally uploaded sensitive information to the public version of ChatGPT. I've put that article in the chat. Another circumstance for AI-related privacy concerns is when you're discussing sensitive information while using AI as a meeting note-taking app. Samsung's had issues with trade secrets being publicly disclosed. Management had asked their programmers to use ChatGPT to fix errors in the source code. In the process of doing this, the employees fed ChatGPT its source code for the new program along with meeting notes. ChatGPT now has all the data for training its LLM. Samsung is now developing its own internal AI so it can be secure. And then I'm going to put an article in the chat about things that you should never share with ChatGPT. And these include sensitive company data, creative works, intellectual property, financial information, personal data, medical data, usernames and passwords, and ChatGPT chats. Accuracy is another issue of concern when using AI. A study linked in the chat box looked at the most common sources for major AIs, such as ChatGPT, Perplexity, AI Mode, and AI Overviews. The top source for these was Reddit at 40%, followed by Wikipedia at 26%. Then YouTube, Google, Yelp, Facebook, and Amazon all were ranging from 18% to 24%. Additionally, data used by AI is not always timely. For example, I asked the free version of ChatGPT who it thought would be elected president in late October 24, told me with great confidence that Joe Biden was the clear frontrunner. When I told it that he's no longer in the race, it told me that's a false rumor. When I asked it to again look for Harris, it declared she would be the winner and that I should watch more CNN and MSNBC to get detailed updates on politics. When I tried closer to the election, it was patched to decline to give a prediction. However, the early searches clearly demonstrated how AI is made on old data, which may or may not show the complete picture of what's occurring or what may happen. And citing source materials is another weakness of AI. So the article linked in the chat compared citations generated by ChatGPT 4.0 to academic databases, namely Google Scholar, Scopus, and PubMed. Almost 1/5 of the citations were completely fabricated. Of the remaining citations, almost half had at least one error. These common mistakes and fabrications are more common when ChatGPT is asked about a highly specialized subject with less research around it. Now, artistic works, how they could be used is changing too. So Authors Guild versus Google was a class action fair use case that lasted a decade. Google scanned books that would make a searchable database of snippets. The database is searchable. The controversy surrounding the lawsuit. Some authors agreed with the Authors Guild, while others celebrate Google making their work more accessible. In the end, Google won the lawsuit. The decision was based on the doctrine of transformativeness, which allowed use of the copyrighted material. Google had enriched public knowledge, which was deemed fair use for scholarship and research. Looking how AI uses books is also interesting, albeit lawsuits may still occur. Meta is currently being sued for its use of books torrented from shadow libraries distributing pirated materials. While this lawsuit has not concluded, some are citing a message from a Meta employee saying they were concerned about Meta IP addresses being used to load through pirate content, and that torrenting from a corporate laptop doesn't feel right. This combined with the fact that Meta then used Amazon Web servers to handle the torrented books is being used to argue guilt. Anthropic has also been sued several times. It did lose a lawsuit, but it won another. The case that it won was regarding what they referred to as Project Panama. Anthropic bought many physical books. They then sliced out the binding and fed them through high-speed scanners. They subsequently destroyed the remains. Their goal was about 130 million unique titles to teach AI models how to write well. The purchase, scanning, and destruction of the books was a calculated move to argue legality. So as you work with sensitive data, be very careful when you use public large language models. Please remember that they use all the data they can to build AI. Some large language model companies have multiple lawsuits against them for infringing on intellectual property rights of the data they have already used. Therefore, don't assume that normal standards will apply. Take steps to protect yourself, as it is the wild, wild west currently. Even when you're using other software programs or apps, read how they're connected to large language models, and if they are connected to those, how they are using your data.
We just want to mention that the Wyoming SBDC is funded by the Small Business Administration and the Wyoming Business Council and hosted by the University of Wyoming. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you, Kayley, and thank you, Monica, for those cautions. This is an ongoing series of webinars where we're just trying to provide some information to small business owners in Wyoming about the ways AI can be used and the ways it should not be used. So hopefully you took away some tips today that will help you in your small business. Thanks again for joining us. Thank you, Kayley. Thank you, Monica. And we hope to see you all again soon on a future webinar. Bye, everyone.